I want to do the last few lines again. Let's just refresh that again. The mimer of the Rebbe Rashab, the main point is to explain how Havaya and Elohim is really one. Even though Havaya is the name of Hashem to reveal godliness, and Havaya is infinite, Elohim conceals godliness, and Elohim is finite, Elohim is limitations. Nevertheless, they're one. And how are they one? So he explains that all the limitations and all the concealments, everything that's being hidden, the purpose is to reveal. In other words, they're really both going exactly in the same direction. And the ultimate purpose of the concealment is actually to reveal the godly light. But the only way to reveal the infinite light, but the only way to reveal the infinite light is that first it's hidden, first it's concealed, and then slowly and gradually that infinite light could be revealed. The mashal was of a teacher and a student, a Rav and a Talmud, that the Rav understands these concepts on a very deep, abstract level. And the only way he can communicate the concept is by hiding it, concealing it in a mashal. But the mashal, even though outwardly it looks like it's hiding the concept and withholding the depth, and in a sense, not giving the student the real depth of the concept, the truth is the opposite. That's the method that's being used, that the student should be able to get the real depth. But it has to follow this order. First, it's hidden, then the student could receive it, contain it, and then the student could get all the depth out of it. And the same is with the Nisayon. And that's the story with Avraham Avinu, that he was tested with the Ur Kasdan. He's giving an example. In this test, he was threatened that if he doesn't give up his belief in Hashem, he'll be thrown into a fire. And ordinarily, that's what should have happened. However, Hashem made a nest and the fire didn't burn. So he said, this is exactly this idea. Hashem wants to reveal his infinite light in this world. But the infinite light initially can be revealed in the world. So Hashem hides the infinite light through the laws of nature. And the laws of nature, they seem to be challenging Hashem, challenging what's truth. And the person stands up to that challenge. And eventually, through this concealment, is able to reveal gradually that infinite light that's hidden in the concealment. Where did we see by Avraham Avinu? That after he stood up to the test, the laws of nature were canceled and fire didn't burn. So Avraham Avinu saw with his eyes that the infinite light of Hashem was revealed, because the infinite light of Hashem is not limited by the laws of nature. If this part is clear, then we can go to the next few lines. Everybody understands it? Have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I asked yesterday about the vessels. Like, if, like Hashem, we know Hashem loves us, so he has a lot of light like to give us. But he creates everything, also the vessels. Like, why he can't create like our vessels bigger to
begin with?
Yeah.
So the answer is that it's similar to the general question. Hashem wanted to create a world. What's the purpose? Liyas le'dira b'tachtedim, to have a dwelling place in this physical world. So why couldn't he create the physical world, the first second, and the second make it into a dwelling place? So the answer is, it's not just that Hashem wanted a dwelling place. Hashem wanted a dwelling place in this world, that it should be established through the avodah of human beings. So therefore Hashem created a world that the world in itself can't handle the Shekhinah. And then we, through refining the world and developing the world and cultivating the world, were able to allow the Shekhinah to come into this world. That's the whole purpose. So this is the same idea, just on a higher, more spiritual realm. That, of course, Hashem could create vessels and they would hold the light and everything would be fine. But Hashem wanted dir b'tachtenim. He wanted godly light, which is infinite, to be in vessels which are finite. What did he do? He created finite vessels and he gave us the avodah, the work to refine those vessels and to broaden them and to develop them, that these vessels, which in essence are finite, should be able to contain a light that's infinite. How? This is how. There's an aside. First of all, in general, Torah mitzvahs, I take things in the Gashmizdika world and I make tefillin out of it, mezuzah, tzitzis, matzah, shofar. Through this, I'm elevating the physical world and I'm making the vessel able to receive this infinite light, but specifically through an aside. So that means, of course, Hashem could do everything himself, but the whole purpose was to create something which naturally doesn't hold, and we, through our avodah, will refine it, and then you have dira b'tachtenim, which means the infinite light in the physical realm, in a finite world. Now, that doesn't explain why. Whenever we say that Hashem created the world and the purpose is dira b'tachtenim, so we have to understand this doesn't explain why, this explains what. What's the plan? What's the strategy? What's the goal? But why Hashem wants to do it, we cannot understand. Because this is something which is coming from Hashem who's infinite. How could we understand why he wants it? In fact, human intellect can't comprehend it, because when you want something, that means you're lacking, you're missing something, and therefore you want this because you didn't have it before. Being that Hashem is complete, and Hashem is perfect, and Hashem is infinite, and he's not lacking anything, that doesn't need anything, doesn't want anything, why does he want dir b'tachtenim? Does that mean that before the world was created, something was missing? He created the world to get something he didn't have before. Chas v'shalom. So then why did he want the world? The answer is, I don't know. So why do we say the world is a dwelling place, that Hashem does have a purpose? The answer is, we're explaining what Hashem wants, but we still don't understand why he wants it. By knowing what Hashem wants, that gives us clarity what everything is all about, Torah, mitzvahs, and midah. Everything we do is all related to the purpose of making the world a dwelling place for Hashem. But why Hashem wants that this lowest world should be a dwelling place for him, we can't understand that. There's no way a finite brain can understand what infinite wants. Sorry to disappoint you. Okay, so now once we understand this, how it applies to Avraham Avinu, now let's just go over again how it applies to every single individual. For us, an Nisayon is basically on a daily basis, we deal with Nisyonis. So he gives the example of a person who goes to work, and the Nisayon is that he's tempted to do something in business that's not so honest, because then he'll be able to make a lot of money. Or he's tempted to skip davening today because he wants to get to work at very early so he can start and he'll be able to make a lot of money or not lose money. Or he's tempted to do work on Shabbos because that's a very, very valuable day. A lot of money comes in on Shabbos, or anything else. That's his Nisayon. For some people that's not the Nisayon. But there are different Nisayonos, things that appear to me that if I do things the way you're supposed to perfectly, according to Torah, I'm not going to make it. In order to really succeed in the world and the business world, you have to cut corners a little bit. You have to bend over here. You have to bend over there. You have to do things a little bit different. You can't be like straight as a stick. And basically, that is an Nisayon. So when a person doesn't bend in Torah, he davens every day the way he should, and he studies Torah the way he should, and he's honest in business the way he should, and he stops working Friday afternoon right before Shabbos the way he should, and all the things that you're supposed to do. And it looks like if you act this way, you're going to lose out in business. That's what his friends are telling him. And he stands strong because he understands this is only a test. There's no way that Hashem will cause me damage, cause me losses because I'm following Torah mitzvahs. And therefore, he will merit to see the infinite light in his personal life. Now, who sees infinite lights? Unless you know, said a lot of the Chaim, then you see infinite lights. This is water, by the way. Dvorah could testify. So the answer is two things, and that's what we're up to, this line here. So we're going to page 8, the number at the bottom of the page, 8. And the end of the paragraph, let's do 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 lines from the end of the paragraph. The first word on the line is, it's actually an acronym, Beis Mem Vav Mem, B'maso Matan. So v'ayidei zeh, when a person is Eimed bin Esayin, stands up to the test, B'chol Elo Advarim, all the things mentioned above, that he doesn't take away from a time of davening, doesn't take away from the time of learning, doesn't do anything of business that's not honest. He will merit a light of Hashem that's above nature. What does that mean practically? So, of course, it could be spiritually. These are things that are happening that he's not aware of. I don't remember if I told the story this year. I think I did in the Pirkei Avos class. That was on level 1. But to give an example, there's a story with the Baal Shem Tov, and whoever was here last year surely remembers that story, that the Baal Shem Tov once saw a person. He was visiting a city called Brod in Poland, and he saw this man walking down the street, and he said, a brilliant light shining from his head, on top of his head. And the Baal Shem Tov said this brilliant light was something similar to what it says in Chumash, the light that was shining by Moshe Rabbeinu. And he thought for sure this must be a hidden tzaddik. The reason why he was puzzled was because he was the head of the whole group of hidden tzaddikim, and he never knew about this person. So then he started to observe him, the way he davens, the way he acts during the day, and he realized he's no hidden tzaddik, he's a regular person. So why is this like that? And he tried to watch what he does and how he does it and when he does it, and there was nothing there that would explain and justify why he had this brilliant light. So it's a long story and with a lot of details to it. But at the end of the day, what happened was that it was revealed to the Baal Shem Tov that this person was, they called him, he saw people calling him Hirschel Tzig. Hirschel is a Yiddish name, it means a deer. Tzig is a Yiddish word which means a goat. So a little strange combination. So he found out that this person owns goats, and he's the address to go to when somebody is sick, somebody is weak, a woman who gave birth, and they need to be strengthened by drinking goat's milk, which is healthier than regular milk. They would go to him and he would provide the goat's milk, or he would go places and bring people goat's milk. So he had a lot of goats. So his name was Hirschel, but they called him Hirschel Tzig because he was the man with the goats. And after the Baal Shem Tov davened, he begged Hashem to reveal to him in what merit does he have this light. He told him that he dedicated his life to help people that are sick, and that's why he has the goats, and that's why he gives them the milk. And the Baal Shem Tov realized he's not learned, he's a simple Jew. And usually the simple Jews, not only they're not learned, but as a result of that, they make mistakes, they don't know halacha well, and they're God-fearing, but they don't know how to do things right. Nevertheless, he merited this brilliant, brilliant light. Why? Because he was so invested in the mitzvah of helping sick people. So here's a person that has this brilliant light, he's not even aware of it. So that's answer number 1, that's not in the mimer, but I'm sure that answer is also applicable. That when a person stands up to a test, They merit a brilliant light, which is bli gvul, this infinite light of Hashem. How come if there's an infinite light of Hashem, I don't feel it? Because our eyes are not working so well, our ears are not working so well, our brain and our hearts are not so working so well. We don't feel and see, and we're not sensitive to spirituality. So just like this person walked down the street with a brilliant light shining and had no idea, that's how we pass a test, can also have this brilliant light shining and we have no idea. That's number one. Number two, he says, is actually it manifests in a way that we can see it with our eyes. How is it? Alpi Pashut, first of all, on a simple level, Zeh Atzmei, this in itself, Sheroye Be'ene, when a person sees with his eyes, Shegam Shemisnag Alpi Torah mitzvahs, that even though he's following Torah and mitzvahs, for Esek B'Torah V'Aveda, he engages in Torah and Aveda, which means he does things right according to HaShulchan Aruch, according to the way Hashem wants. And this is not consistent with what out there in the world sort of is expected of you, but he just does what Hashem wants. He won't lose out. That in itself is, in a certain sense, he's seeing with his eyes infinite light of Hashem. How the laws of nature don't apply. We had a student here a number of years ago that she married this young man who was involved in political things. And he once spoke publicly and he told a story about his a little bit of the history of his political involvement. And he said, I forgot what it was, that he was running for a certain position where he lived. Can't remember where it was. And who came out against him? A group of women. It was a very powerful group. Politically, they had a lot of power behind them. And they came out against him. Why? Because he said he's religious. He's not going to shake the hand of a woman. He's not going to do other things. And therefore, we shouldn't vote for him. So what did he do? He went down to speak to the woman who was in charge of this whole group, the top person. Of course, she stuck out her hand and he said no. And then he said to her, listen, I have certain principles that I live by. I believe in the Torah and I live by those principles and I'm committed to those principles. I don't compromise. What would you rather have? Would you rather have someone running that person compromise on his principles to get more votes and to get what he wants and become popular with people? Or you want somebody that's strong and committed to values? That's how they started the discussion. At the end of the discussion, not only she took away what she said that they're going out against him, they actually endorsed him and he won the elections. So what he said was, it's not only that even if you keep Torah, you don't lose out, but actually because he kept Torah, that was what helped him win the race, the elections. So in other words, when you see something like that, in a sense, you're seeing godliness revealed. You're seeing that the laws of nature don't govern the world. Hashem governs the world. Because according to the laws of nature, he was doing things that made people not popular, and yet he won the race. So that means, this is the first thing that he's saying. Or like the example I gave you yesterday with this woman who said unequivocally, she's keeping Shabbos. I can't work anymore Friday night. And suddenly she sees that the guy says to her, okay, which other night could you come into? Which means that according to the laws of nature, that's not the way it normally would work. It would be, okay, goodbye. We're getting someone else in your place. Really, there's also another thing even deeper. And what is that? The person will actually feel. In other words, as a result of standing up to the test, they're going to feel a certain feeling for godliness. And there'll be a certain sensitivity to godliness. And that is actually a result of this infinite light that's shining. By tzaddikim, these things shine in a very huge way, in a very revealed way. But by the average person, just the fact that they'll find a little bit more of a feeling in their davening, in their learning, in their mitzvahs, they'll be able to sense more the godliness in what they see and what they hear. That is the infinite light manifesting as a result of standing up to the test. So this concludes this whole discussion of how this is the inyan of a test, why Hashem gives us a test. So even though on the surface, when people get a test, they're upset, they're resentful, why is Hashem causing me all this pain and all this anguish? But the real reason is that through a test, the person rises to a much higher level. And if you recognize that, then a person has to be held back from davening that he should get a test. I have to be told, don't daven for that. On the contrary, daven that we don't get a test, because a test brings a person to a much, much higher level. And that's the ultimate purpose why Hashem sent the neshama down to this world, because it reaches a higher level by passing a test. And if you remember from the other mimer, the word nace, it's actually in this mimer, the word nace is related to the word high, banner, something which is very high, because that's what happens to the person after passing a test. Okay, so where do we go from here? Did we finish the last ice, Bob? I think we did. No, we didn't. Something tells me that we went up to the middle of the last ice, and then I don't know what happened. How come we didn't finish? Took a detour. So I remember a lot of these phrases and quotes. So let's start again from the beginning of Vov, and we'll finish to the end. We'll now understand why the pasuk divides the tents of Yaakov and the dwelling place of Yisrael to two separate things. What does it mean? That it's referring to two different things. Ohel, tent, is diras arai, is a temporary dwelling place. Mishkan, the term Mishkan versus the term tent, is diras kva, a permanent dwelling place. So by Yaakov he says Ohel, and by Yisrael he says Mishkan. Why? Amongst Yidden, there are two general directions of Avodah. The Avodah of Bali Asakim, which is people that engage mainly in earning a living, and the Avodah of Yesh Ve'el, people that engage mainly in sitting in the tents of Torah, studying Torah, either studying Torah, spending the time on prayer. And Bali Asakim, they're called Yaakov. Why Yaakov? Shu Yud Ekev. Yaakov is made up of two words. What? You don't know where I'm up to? You're missing the page?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Yud Ekev, which means Kashem Sho'ekev is Seif Agu, just like the heel is all the way at the bottom of the body. And not only that's the bottom of the body, but it's actually bottom, not only physically, that it's in that location, but it's also the place in the body that has the least chayas. In other words, it's the most insensitive part of the body. That's why we can walk on our feet and with the heel, because you don't feel all the things that are on the floor. If you'd walk with your hands, it would be much more difficult. Not just because you can't be upside down, because the hands are just much more sensitive than the skin of the feet. On the surface, it appears that these people are the lower, in a lower place in the general Jewish, in the community. In other words, the Jews as one identity, they're like the feet. Why? They're constantly involved in their parnasa, working hard, Yigiyas nefesh v'yigiyas basar, which means that they're toiling both physically, emotionally, and all the things that people need to do when they are working. So they're very involved in what are they invested in? They're invested in gashmistic work. And versus people who are invested in learning, so this is like the feet. But in truth, The dafka through them, who kiyim kol kaimis Yisrael, just like the feet support the whole person, so too these yidden support all the yidden, and that's what it means by yud ekev shemamshichem yud. They draw down the yud, which is nekudas hayadus. That's that pintel yud, which is the yechida gambo ekev. They bring it down even while they're out in doing worldly things. They bring the yud into that world. I know this means the gamba in yanam apshutim, even in simple things, to serve Hashem when you're learning, to serve Hashem when you're davening. That's obvious. But to be able to serve Hashem while you're in business, to serve Hashem while you're doing gashmizik activities, that is something which is, in a sense, much higher. This is similar to what it says in Gemara. A person should always be careful with davening mincha, because mincha, in a way, is the greatest of all three tefillas. And what is it based on? Because there's a story in Tanakh with Eliyahu Navi, we mentioned it the other day, that Eliyahu Navi was out there to prove that these false prophets are false. I remember we said yesterday, it was 2 days ago, that he davened and Hashem brought a fire down from heaven. What did he daven? He davened mincha. So we see that Eliyahu Navi was answered in the merit of mincha. So we should know that mincha is the most precious of all three prayers. Now the question is, how is mincha more precious than everything else? So the explanation of that is that Shachris is in the morning before I go out to work. So that's a little bit easier. I didn't go out there yet. I didn't get involved in worldly things. So I sit down with a siddur and I think about Hashem and I daven to Hashem. That's something which is easier to do because I still haven't gotten involved with the obstacles out there and with the challenges out there. At night, I daven Ma'ariv, same thing again. What's Ma'ariv? At the end of the day, and the day is over. And now I'm no longer dealing with all the physical gashmizik challenges out there, and I'm davening to Hashem. What's mincha? Mincha is in the middle of the day, in the middle of work, which means I worked before, I'm going to be working after, and I run out in the middle to daven mincha. That is the most challenging of all. That I'm in that challenging world, and while I'm in that challenging world, I'll be able to daven to Hashem. So the same is here. People who are connected to Hashem when they learn all day, okay. People connect to Hashem who daven all day, okay. But to be in the Gashmic world, the world of business, which is a world which is distant from godliness, and in that world to bring godliness there through doing things according to Torah and the right way, that is bringing down the Yud into the Eker. So even in Yanam Shutim, if he's doing business and he's buying and selling, Mamshichem Midas Tevis, that's where he displays good character traits, Gemilas Chasadim, giving tzedakah, Abbas Reim, love for a fellow Jew, and Kasherhem Kevim Eating the when Jews like that who are so involved in this world which is draining and exhausting, as we all know, nevertheless they set aside time for learning Torah. This gives tremendous pleasure to Hashem ad Ein Sof Baruch Hu. It reaches the highest places of Ein Sof. Ukiyadua, as it's known, Mefursam, and it's Mefursam means it's publicized all over. The piece Svarim and piece Seifrim from all the sources. The Milas Halimud Berabim. That is a tremendous merit when people study together as a group. The great merit there is in just saying Tilim, and to study halacha and agadah. Because a lot of these people were simple Jews, not very learned. So therefore, when they finished working, or before they went to work in the morning, they would say Tilim. And when you look at someone saying Tilim, you look at us, a simple Jew, he says Tilim. But we don't even begin to realize the merit of the Tilim. Tilim is something very, very powerful. The famous story of the Baal Shem Tov. It's in Hebrew, but on the back of the Siddur, there's a whole collection of letters from the previous Rebbe about the power of Tilim. It's all in Hebrew, but I think by now it's been translated already into English. And one of the stories there are, the Baal Shem Tov saw that there was a gzeir, there was a decree on a certain community, And the decree was that, God forbid, there was going to be a massacre and all the people in the community would be killed, 400 families. Obviously, there must be a reason why that was decreed. So Baal Shem Tov davened, he got all his other colleagues, all the hidden tzaddikim to daven. Everything they did and everything they tried didn't help. And the Baal Shem Tov said that he made aliyas neshama. He went up to spiritual realm, to the heavenly realm, to pray, to see what he can accomplish, but he failed. He couldn't do anything. And he says, as he was descending back to this world, he saw a place where there was a brilliant, brilliant light shining. And he did his research, and he was told that this is a chamber of a Jew, was a simple Jew, but he says the entire Tillim every day 5 times. And this spiritual light that's shining is from his Tillim. So Hashem found the Jew and said to him, tell me, if you knew that with your share in the world to come, you can save an entire community from being annihilated, would you give it away? Give away that merit? So he said he doesn't believe that he has such a merit, but if he had such a merit, he would give it away. And in that merit, the whole community was saved. So that's just from saying Tillim. And the Shabbos is Shabbos Mevarchim. This is the Shabbos that was supposed to be saying the whole Tillim. Of course, not everybody can say the whole Tillim. It's a lot of Tillim to say. But whatever. But this is one of the Shabbosim that once a month, where we're, according to the customs of the Friedrich Rebbe, to say the entire Tillim. So Tillim is a very powerful thing. Learning, sitting in shul with a group of people and learning is a very powerful thing. Learning halacha is something very powerful. It says in the Siddur even, but of course it comes from Gemara, that a person who learns halacha every day is guaranteed a share in the world to come. And the same with Agada. Agada are the stories in Gemara. The stories in Gemara are also very simple. They teach us a lot about good character traits, about tzaddikim, but the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that it's known that the deepest mystical secrets of Torah are hidden in these stories. Whoever heard stories from Medrash, Gemara, sometimes they sound real strange. This happened, that happened. Hashem sits down on a bird and flies around the world. I mean, there's strange things. Of course, it's a metaphor, but still very strange kind of metaphors. And the real reason is because these are very deep in Yanim, and that's what people are sitting and learning. So, nevertheless, it's called Dir Sarai, not a permanent dwelling place, but a dwelling place which is Arai. It's not permanent. Those who sit in the tents of Torah, these are the Torah scholars. They're studying Torah, not when they get a chance, as soon as they finish work, but that's their main occupation. So that's the permanency. Their Torah study is considered kva. That's permanent because that's where they are. That's what they're occupied with. By the way, even people that are working could get to such a place. There's a story with a chassid that he had a business and he was getting older. So him and his wife were discussing the fact that he wants to spend more time learning. And therefore, he came to the Tzemach Tzedek, third Rebbe of Chabad, and he said, well, the Rebbe agreed that I stop working, I'll be studying Torah, and my wife will run the business herself. Tzemach Tzedek, no, keep doing things the way you did until now. Why? When a Rebbe gives advice, there's much more depth to it. It mainly has to do with the shlichus, with the mission of this person. So he saw that this person has to be working all day. Then the Tzemach Tzedek said to him, do you know this person is called Moshe Musker? Years ago, people were called by their cities where they came from. I can't imagine today calling everybody Brooklyner or New Yorker. You never still know who you're talking about. Because there are a million Mendel New Yorkers and a million Chana New Yorkers. You wouldn't get anywhere. But years ago, they called people by their cities. That's how people are identified. So this guy was from Moscow. So they called him Moshe Musker. So he asked him, so someone said, he asked him, do you know what he does for a living? He was very puzzled. Why is the Tzemach Tzedek asking me such questions? He says, yes, I know. What does he do? So it says he sells this and this material. And where does he get it? How does he go about? So he starts telling Tzemach Tzedek, that's what he wants to hear. Well, he travels to a city called Leipzig. That's a city where they would sell this merchandise. A city in Germany, sell it on, for merchants, sell it wholesale. And then he would travel to different cities and different little villages and places and sell it retail. So he would be traveling, he would be on the road about 3/4 of a year. And then every year they would do the same thing. So the Rebbe said, if he travels on the road 3/4 of the year, why do they call him Moshe Moskler? He's only in Moscow 1/4 of the whole year. So he's not justified to have that name. Again, he's puzzled by the question. He says, Rebbe, but he lives in Moscow. So the Rebbe said to him, if you're working 8 hours a day and you're learning 1 hour a day, but you live in that 1 hour, then you're Moshe Moskler, which means it's not always the technical time. It depends also on where my mind and my heart is. Am I learning and I can't wait to finish so I can go to work? Or am I working and I can't wait to finish so I can go sit down and learn and daven? So basically, generally speaking, when a person whose main occupation is learning, that's permanent. This person who works most of the time, that's his main occupation, and learns a little bit, so that's temporary. But the truth is, it is possible for a person who's at work to be in the frame of mind, that state of mind, as if this is my main occupation. And that's what it means when it says in the pasuk, "Vayokom Eidus b'Yaakov v'Seirish Sham b'Yisrael." Hashem gave Torah to Yaakov, and He gave Torah to Yisrael. But it uses two different terms, Eidus and Torah. Yaakov and Yisrael, because it's referring to two types of Jews. One type that studies Torah in a way that this is his main occupation, and the other one that studies Torah in the other way. So there is an advantage in one over the other, as an advantage in the other over this one. Torah is Hashem's wisdom. It's called Heichal Ilah, the Kudsha Baruch Hu. It's the chamber of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sha'or Ein Sof Baruch Hu Mizgala Sham B'Tmidus. Torah is a place where Hashem's light shines there and manifests in the Torah constantly in an open way. Umizgala B'Bchinas Yisrael. And that's revealed by those people who are Yisrael. Why? Because they're the ones who are mainly occupied with Torah. So they constantly have Hashem's light revealed to them. Avul Eidus, the term Eidus, it's not the actual Chochmah of Hashem. I guess the word Eidus in Hebrew means witnesses. What are witnesses? Witnesses are people that testify that this and this happened. It's not the thing itself. The thing itself happened somewhere, someplace. I'm just letting you know, I can testify that it happened. So in other words, spiritually, it means that this is not Hashem's wisdom in itself, in its own merit. It's a ha'ara, it's a reflection of Hashem's wisdom. And where's that? That's in Yaakov. Because they're the ones that they don't really study Torah as a main occupation. By them, the Torah study is something which is, in a way, secondary, temporary. That's why it's called a temporary dwelling place, which is Ohel, a tent. And that's what it means. How good are your tents, Yaakov? The Ole Yaakov, these tents of Yaakov, which means the tents, the Torah study of these Jews, who are really mainly and primarily occupied with Parnasa, and yet they find time for learning Torah. It's very good. And that means, like it says, Ein Tov el Torah. When it says Tov, it's usually referring to Torah. So really, it's an amazing thing, like you said before, they're drawing down the Yud into the hill. But nevertheless, Hurak Adiris Arabavad. You can't compare it to those who study Torah as a main occupation. Those who study Torah constantly, permanently, that's their main occupation. Hey, Mishkanes Yisrael. For them, we use the term Yisrael, and that's called Mishkan, which is a permanent dwelling place, and that's higher than the temporary dwelling place. And that's why he separates it and divides it into two levels and two different things. So basically, this was the question in the beginning of the Maimer. Isn't and all the same? And he said, generally speaking, it's the same, but there is a difference. This is those who learn Torah as a main occupation. This is for those who learn Torah as after all the work that they do in the Gashmistic world. And therefore, here you use Yaakov and here you use Yisrael. Here it's a tent and here it's a Mishkan.
What's the question?
The question was, he asked in the beginning, Mishkan means Hashem dwells there. And that applies to a shul, to yeshiva. So why does the pasuk separate? How good are your tents? The tent means the tent of Torah and the tent of Tefillah. And Mishkan means where Hashem dwells. The tent of Torah and Tefillah is where Hashem dwells. So therefore he explains, yes, Hashem dwells in both. But the difference is by certain people, Hashem dwells there in a permanent way because they're studying Torah as a main occupation. That's their primary occupation. And that's their permanent occupation. And by other people, their main occupation is Gashmias. So therefore, their learning Torah is more compared to a tent. That's the difference. So Mishkan and Ohel represent whether something is primary or secondary. So for a person who learns Torah all day, that's his primary place. So Hashem's dwelling there is in a primary way. By a person who studies Torah as an additional thing, because mainly 9 hours a day they're busy with work. So for them, it's like they're learning and it's an amazing thing, but it's still a tent.
How does it tie back into the test?
That's the next line. Let's see if we have time, or I'll be saved by the bell. Let's see. However, kolze, everything we just said about the two different levels, that's ba'avoda, the seder v'hanhagi. That's in normal times when there aren't these big tests. And in normal times, there's Ohel, there's Mishkan, there's Yaakov, there's Yisrael. This is higher, this is lower, this is higher, that's lower. But when we're in the time of Golus, like we are now, and we have to elevate the sparks that are in tests with Mesiras Nefesh, then Ohel Yaakov and Mishkan Yisrael in some way are both the same. In other words, you're asking how does it tie into the tent? That's exactly what he's going to explain now. That this difference between the tents of Yaakov and the Mishkan of Yisrael is in ordinary times. But there is a certain time, which is the time we're in now, where we have to have Mesiras Nefesh for Yiddishkeit, and we have to deal with tests that sort of evens out Yaakov and Yisrael in a certain way, that they're both the same. In what way? So, come back on Monday, Mirza Hashem, and we'll talk about that. In general, you should know Chassidus. Chassidus is very fair. Gives everybody something, which in that something they're superior to something else. So there's an advantage in this over that, and that over this. But then saying there's a time when it all evens out because there's something else going on. We'll see what that means. Okay.